Okay, let's get underway. So, firstly, good morning, everyone. Really, thank you for attending this morning's webinar, which is going to be, well, what we've listed as the top 5 AI tools for business productivity. But I think the way AI tools are being created and generated and coming live all the time, I think was it off the last one? Did you say there's like over 2,000 now, Neil? Different AI tools.
Yeah, by the end of this talk, it'll be out of date. It's not really, but it feels that way. It feels that way. It's progressing so fast, isn't it?
So what we've done is just really compile a list of 5 really common AI tools that we think that could potentially provide you some benefit, which we're kind of going to go through. It's going to be a real high level overview of those tools. So, in terms of the time that we've got for the webinar this morning, what I would say is, from a housekeeping perspective, if you've got any questions or anything like that, there will be time for a Q&A at the end of the webinar. So if you just pop any questions in the chat box, we'll come back and kind of deal with those. First, I just want to thank Neil for joining the call this morning. So Neil's is the kind of founder of one of our cybersecurity partners from Cyber Alchemy. So just really want to thank Neil for joining the call this morning. This is the second part of a 3-part series. So a couple of weeks ago, we ran the first webinar, which was just really an overview of kind of what AI is, some potential benefits. We spoke briefly about some of the potential risks in terms of using some of these tools as well. Today, we're going to be going through kind of 5 tools that we've just kind of picked out that hopefully will provide you some benefit in terms of moving forward. And then on the 15th of August, we have got our kind of AI and cybersecurity expert panel together. So where we'll kind of really go through some of the cybersecurity risks as part of this, and so we've got some expert speakers on there. But kind of watch your email for further details, because we'll be kind of sending that information out to you kind of after this call. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that webinar, Neil, of things that we're going to cover.
Not really, Charlie. I think today is kind of us showing maybe the all the positive, all the good stuff. We will touch on some of the challenges, and then on the next talk, we're gonna kind of put that in perspective in terms of risk, and making sure that people are aware that these tools are really powerful, really useful, but you've got to be careful with them in certain ways. So yeah, just a good counterbalance. So this is the one that will make you feel all good, and then we'll not scare you, but tell you the truth and the risks in the third part as well.
Yeah. Okay, good. Mark, if you want to kind of skip on.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess is that me, Charlie, up first?
Yes, please, mate.
Cool. Yeah. Well, again, thanks for having me again. I do enjoy doing these with yourself and Mark. So I'm working in cybersecurity, but AI is in technology, and I'm quite interested just on a personal and professional level. And I'm also looking at this as an organization of, right, are there tools that can make my company better, more efficient, go faster as well? And with the added challenge of being a cybersecurity company, we have to be even more vigilant, because we have to be really, really careful about the data we hold and what we do, because if we get caught out, it's not good press. So one of the tools that I come across in my travels is called Otter.ai. Now, Microsoft come out with a suite of their own tools, Copilot, but they keep pushing the date back. So in the short term, some of the smaller sort of players, or growing smaller players, are sort of stepping into that field and doing what Microsoft say they will do whenever they do come out. So I don't know about you, but I've always had a challenge in meetings, right? Meetings can be really good, productive endeavors, or they can be quite expensive, unproductive endeavors, right? You can have meetings where there are loads of people that turn up, and maybe they shouldn't really be there, they're not really adding anything, or a meeting where the right people turn up, but at the end of the meeting, nothing's agreed, nobody knows really what they're doing, and in both situations, it can make the meeting quite inefficient. So enter Otter.ai. So what Otter.ai is an AI tool the Autopilot, it joins your meeting. It joins your team meeting. I will touch on the security and privacy concerns here at the end, and we'll talk about this more in the third webinar. But we need innovation, and that's what they're trying to do. So Otter.ai, the Otter Copilot, will join your Teams, your Google. It will join your online meeting. It'll sit in that meeting quietly, and it will record the meeting. It'll record the audio, and it will transcribe the audio, which this has existed before. But one of the cool features that it has is once it has transcribed the audio, it sets about reading the audio and coming up with actions, summaries, key points in the meeting. So rather than having someone taking notes in the meeting, or if there's never anybody who takes notes in the meeting, you've got an entity in that meeting that is making those notes and saying, Neil, you're responsible for this. Charlie, you're responsible for that. Mark agreed he was going to do this. An actual quantifiable piece of data that says these are the actions that were made. If somebody wasn't able to join the meeting, they can actually go into the Otter transcript and even talk to Otter and say, was I mentioned in the meeting? Is there anything for me to do? So it's quite powerful in that way. If you go to the next slide, please, Mark. So the dashboard, this is my example of a potato. So I had a conversation with myself about a potato. I've not gone mad. I just wanted to test it out. So the left-hand side, you've got the top transcript. It was just 3 minutes of me just randomly talking, to be honest. It captures the speakers who spoke in the meeting. Now we tested this out actually on one not important meeting in our company, and it made me realise that I talk too much. It was a great self-reflection exercise. So I need to be a bit more concise in what I say. But it captures the text on the left-hand side. And then if you look at the middle column, you can see that I asked it some questions. I said, what were the action items? It got I said Hedwig, not Hedro, but it said, Hedro will work on frying the potatoes, Claude will work on baking them, and Barbara's going to look out and market it. Again, it's a bit silly, but the point there is, if we were talking about real items, real things, it would capture those things. I asked if people were mentioned. It told me that Claude was, Peter wasn't, and it summarized the meeting. Plus, there's loads of other things that you can do. It plugs into your Outlook or whatever calendar you're using. And if you look on the right, you can see it can join. That's my calendar for today, or this week even. And it can join different meetings if you allow it to. So I feel it's a really powerful tool. It can do a lot. Microsoft are going to come out with something at some point with Copilot that does something similar. So there's a lot of benefits there. Now, the downside, if you're already thinking, is it's recording everything you're doing, it's transcribing everything you're doing. So we've got security and privacy concerns there, about if this data went walkabout, if the account was compromised, suddenly someone can log in there and see all the transcripts and information that you have discussed. So I'm trying to give a balance there, saying, some companies might decide to use it in certain meetings and not others. Maybe clients don't feel too comfortable being recorded. So there's a lot of conversations to have and discussions, but it's here. And I wouldn't be surprised if you find yourself in meetings in the next few years where someone says, do you mind if we bring our Autopilot or whatever tool they're using into the meeting? And as I say, if you could find a way to use it in your business in a risk balanced way, then it might be able to really add some value to what you're doing and help with those really help with those meetings becoming more valuable. So that's Otter.ai. Of course, the next one.
I think the surprising thing with that, Neil, though, is the accuracy of it as well, isn't it? It's in terms of the context of conversation and action points and everything else. I think
my accent as well, yeah, definitely. But it's a joke, but a truth as well, because that's the gist there Mark's just gone to. But it needs to be able to capture different accents, and if the tool cannot do that, then the tool becomes half. If it can only capture the voices of half the people on the call, then it suddenly becomes much less useful, doesn't it?
100%. I think the whole audio recording has become so much better, because I remember the early days of things like using dragon dictation, such like it, most of the words would be wrong, but the whole AI transcript of things has certainly improved things massively. Sorry, mate, for interrupting them.
Yeah, no, please, yeah. And then the second tool I wanted to talk about is something called Neuron Writer. So we're in a world where a lot of times, you want to get seen, you want to show expertise in your company. Writing a blog, writing an article, putting some expertise out there is a great way to show potential customers and returning customers that you know what you're talking about, right? And running a small company, I find it really difficult to compete with the larger companies because we don't have the same budget, to spend on marketing, on content. I've got some great people working with me. They know a lot, but we're constrained by our resources, like most organizations. So we've got blogs that we put out, we've got articles that we put out, but when it comes to putting articles on your website and things like that, Google, you live or die by Google, or maybe Bing in the future as we're moving into GPT taking over and Microsoft becoming more relevant with Bing. But when people are searching for advice on something, or even product or service, you want to be higher up in the rankings because that's how you get seen. So I came across Neuron Writer, which is a tool that fuses the ability to create a blog or an article, but optimizing it for SEO, search engine optimization, so allowing you to be higher in the rankings. And again, as a smaller company who don't have a dedicated SEO person, that can become really challenging. And you can write an awesome article or an amazing blog, but if you don't know how to manage the SEO, you can kind of fall quite low. So the way this tool works is you give it a few keywords about the content you want. So I tried to make it topical for this. I'm not sure how many people would search for this, but I wanted sort of like managed service providers with expertise in artificial intelligence. Like, we want to get an article out there so that when people are searching for artificial intelligence in IT or things like that, we're going to come high in the rankings. So you give it the search. And then what you do is it gives you the competitors, who else is doing really well in those areas. You can select the top 10, you can add some bespoke articles if you have competitors, you can go further down than the top 10. What you say is basically go and analyze their articles, blogs and content, and come back with the keywords that they're discussing, and really just try to understand why they're doing really well on Google. So you do that, and if you just go to the next slide, please, Mark. It'll come back on the left-hand side with the keywords that the article has covered. So these are all the things that the article mentions several times. It's not a very well-trodden path, this article. There are other searches that are a lot more competitive. But what it's saying is the best competitors are scoring about 57. Here's the words that you've got to put in your article. Now, a couple of years ago, when I was trying to write blogs, I was speaking to a marketing team, and they were sort of saying, yeah, you need to write a blog. You need to make sure you put your keywords in there. And that became really challenging because you're trying to write your blog and you're trying to be mindful of putting the keywords in the right places. And you feel like you've got two brains trying to balance the two. So what we can do with Neuron Writer is it gives us that list of words. And then the right-hand side, it actually gives you suggestions of what people are searching for and what might be a good headline or header for your article. Now, I'd always suggest you already have an article or a blog in mind, and what you're doing is you're using this tool to enhance what you're doing. I wouldn't just use this tool to create it from scratch. Of course, you can do that, but when people actually do come to read it, the point is this is just a tool that's going to help get people onto the article. They still need to read that article, find it useful, and get some benefit out of it. Otherwise, you're going to fall over at the last hurdle when they read the article and they say, well, that didn't really help me. I'm not really interested in this company. So it's not a replacement for a bit of quality. It's just allowing you to, as I say, compete with other organizations that maybe have larger marketing budgets and things than yourself. So we select an article title, we select some headers, and we'll go to the next slide, please, Mark. And then what you can then do is one of two things. One, you can write the article yourself. You can start to write it and you start filling up the keywords, and the score will slowly increase as you write the article. Or you can do a bit of a hybrid. We can bring our friend AI in here, ChatGPT, and we can take the header, go to AI writing, And what that will do, and on the right hand side, it's just the top bit that I filled in. How can businesses benefit from AI? And what that will do is write 244 words on how businesses can benefit from AI, but keeping those keywords in mind. Now, I would really strongly advise against just using this tool in its entirety, because all you're going to get is a lot of rehashed stuff on the internet. But what you can do is you can use it as support material. And the way I explained it to Charlie the other day was, in a song, sometimes you have a hook, right? You have the key bit, you've got that, that really cool little bit that everyone likes listening to. Or in an article, you've got the really the expertise, like maybe a couple of paragraphs of actually what's really important, but the content around it might be explaining what is AI, how does AI work. And so you can use this tool to help to generate the content around your key point, so that you do better in the search rankings. So people will come to your site, they'll come to your article, but then you still got your hook in there. So I did an article the other day on the lovely subject of PCI DSS. I wrote a couple of paragraphs myself that I really wanted to get across as the gist of the article. And then I had a play with Neuron Writer, and I built a few paragraphs around it. What's PCI DSS? How does it work? And all this kind of stuff. And put it together, I managed to get a score of like 68. And according to a few of the tools I checked, it was a very well SEO optimized article, but actually in a human readable and usability format, it also did that for me as well. So let's pop to the next slide. And this is it's not finished. This is just 2 paragraphs that it's created. And you can see we've got 2 article sort of paragraphs. We've got a score there of 26. So the score is increasing. It has a readability score there of 33. Again, you want that high because you want people to be able to read it. It also has a target of around 1,500 to 2,000 words, because that's what normally Google at the moment has as a good article length for people to read. And it tells you your competitors' best ranking. And as you can see on the right hand side, it starts to fill up green, amber and red or yellow with how you're doing on those keywords. And so I emphasize it's that balance. We're not just playing the SEO game, but we have to play the SEO game. So we're not just creating articles to be to the top of Google, and then people find that they're just a load of keywords thrown together. The idea is this tool can hopefully help you balance the two, get something good out there that plays well with the search engines and gets you seen, really. So yeah, that's the second one. I think, is that back over to Charlie, sir.
Yeah, no worries. No, I think that it's quite an interesting one, that, Neil, because it's something that I know us as a business, the more we've looked at SEO and creating content for perhaps lower ranking pages, so where we know there's not necessarily high volume of traffic, but we need some content to capture a search result and try and get somebody to come to a page, using tools like that is really good. Not necessarily something that we'd use on your main landing pages where you want your core messaging and values and everything else to come across, really well crafted. But I think in terms of just creating content that's going to rank well and get you traffic to a website, it certainly seems a really, really good tool. Moving on, so I'm going to probably freestyle this a little bit more. So we're going to just jump into ChatGPT. So we briefly kind of mentioned ChatGPT in the first talk that we did a few weeks ago. But for those who've not come across it, I think that the way that I would probably describe ChatGPT is think of ChatGPT as basically as a librarian who's read all the books in the world, and when I say that, probably up to about 2021. In terms of the information available, and you can kind of go and ask them any question and become the font of all knowledge from a book and academia perspective. What I would say is to treat any output with caution. So it's not always 100% accurate, and Neil gave some quite good examples in the previous webinar. I think it was around pepperoni toppings, and where the fifth character, a pizza topping, where the fifth character is the letter P, and it just kind of giving the wrong answer. So treat the output with caution, but actually is a really good tool off the back of it. So Mark, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen and just kind of take over this, if that's okay. So so ChatGPT to start with. So firstly, if you've never used this before, if you go to chat.openai.com, you can go and create a free account there. This is a tool that you can kind of go and have a play around with. It gives you a certain amount of credits that you can use, which I've yet to run out on the free side of things. There is an upgraded version, which is kind of the newer version of ChatGPT, which you do need to pay for, but we're not really going to cover that today. This is just kind of more the principle of some of the benefits that it can bring. So firstly, there's lots of different things that we can do in here. So we can ask it questions. So we can use this from a almost like a conversational basis if you're trying to find out information. We can use it to create content. So one of the things that we like Neil was saying with Neuron Writer, a lot of these other AI tools will link into ChatGPT in terms of creating content. We can use it for things like creating code. So kind of web designers, coders, IT people might want to create certain code to do a certain task. I'm not really going to touch on that today because I don't really want to go too technical in terms of the part of it, but or things like asking it to create interview questions for a certain role, or asking it to analyze information and actually give you some findings of it. So really quite diverse in terms of some of its capabilities. We're just going to kind of touch on that as well, and also the sense of personality sometimes that it can give us. So we can ask it to write articles and information with a in a certain tone or in a certain context. So to kick off with, once you've gone to chat.openai.com, we can go and create a new chat with ChatGPT. And in this case, let's keep it on the subject of the webinar that we've got. So I'm going to ask it to write an article to demonstrate. If I could type, it would help this morning. Demonstrate the benefits of AI. So we can keep it really simple to start with, and I can just ask it to go and write me an article in terms of doing that. And you can see quite quickly, this is starting to generate some content that's, when you start to read it through, and I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time over this, but is pretty well written. It's fairly indicative of kind of any kind of Google search result. You might find an article that's very similar to this, but the personality around this is fairly neutral. It's not particularly necessarily very exciting, but we can start to feed more information into ChatGPT and actually change the context of this article that's been written. So as a little bit of fun, we can start to kind of give these different writing styles. So you might perhaps want it to be more persuasive. You might want it to be slightly more humorous. I could say, as an example, rewrite this in the style of Donald Trump. So I think we can all imagine, Trump talking and the way that he would. And immediately the styling of this, let me just stop the generation of that. But the way this is worded, the way the title's been changed, starting to read this through, you can see and you can almost imagine Trump, saying this stuff out loud, all the kind of positive anecdotes, the way that he would talk, etc. But again, you can change this into different stylings if you want to go kind of another end of the spectrum, and perhaps this is a generational piece from me, but the style. So this is for any South Park fans out there. Hopefully this doesn't come up with anything offensive, but right in the style of Eric Cartman, which is a character on a South Park character. So you can immediately see the same content is now being written in a completely different way. really quite, super quick to do, in terms of creating content and creating information. You can see very quickly how with just some interaction we can really change the way that this reads, the way that it feels, and actually just is a huge time saver. There's some other examples that might use this as well for, though, from a business context. So sometimes, going into interviews, or if there's new roles or we've got people coming into an interview, I might just want to quickly compile some questions that I want to ask them. So in this case, I might say, actually, create some interview questions for a finance director. Just scroll down, and ChatGPT is now giving me, and again, they might not be exactly what I want to use, but it gives me a real starter for 10 of some questions that I might want to ask somebody in terms of doing that particular role. Other kind of examples that I've certainly used this for is things like creating instruction manuals or instruction guides. So let's kind of take it something completely away from IT. Create a set of instructions to change the create a set of instructions to change the fuel pump in a Ford car 2010 model. And again, pressing enter, it's going away and creating me a set of instructions. Again, how I certainly wouldn't want to comment on the accuracy of this information, but again, you can see very quickly most of the things in there look fairly fairly on point. Might want to go in and refine that with kind of a more detailed knowledge of kind of mechanical engineering, but ultimately it's gone and created me a guide and some information, something that would have potentially taken me quite a long time to go and create previously. So you can start to see the variety of things that we can start to do with things like with ChatGPT is really quite varied. So and from a coding perspective, this isn't just about creating content. So if you did work in IT, or you're a marketeer, or from a website company, I can ask it to write some code to do a particular task. I can ask it to create me a set of instructions or a set of ingredients to create a particular meal. From a business context, you can actually then get it to analyze information. So as an example, perhaps if you were applying for a job and you want it to analyze your CV and get it to compare your CV to a job role that you're going to apply for. Now, I'm not going to necessarily show a CV on here, but one of the examples I was going to show is actually perhaps writing a covering letter for a job role. So in this case, we've got a job that we've got advertised on our website at the moment. So I can go and grab that text, which I've already got here. So I've got a job description here that I've just kind of grabbed from the website itself, and there's roles and responsibilities within that. Now I can go to ChatGPT and say something like, write a covering letter, applying, sorry. And I'm just going to copy and paste that job description in there. And because I'm asking it to go and create a covering letter, it's going to give me the bare bones of the abilities of writing a letter applying for this particular role. So we can start to see some of the key points. It's pulling out information in here that's within the job description, in terms of kind of the technical skills and capabilities in there, in terms of certifications that kind of meet the requirements of that job description. And it's gone away and created that, and that will be pretty much on point. You might want to go in and tailor it and customize it a little bit. But actually, by feeding it some information, you can actually kind of get it to go and do a different task. This kind of is extended to things like where you can get it to analyze data. So I've done some things in the past with ChatGPT of putting things like some Excel information within there and getting it to go and analyze and give me some data and information off the back of it. So some of the capabilities in here are really quite varied and can be really quite complex. So hopefully that kind of gives you some ideas around kind of the use of ChatGPT, aside from kind of coding and things like that, which which a lot of people tend to use it for. In terms of the next tool that we're going to move on to is something called Tome. So Tome is can be accessed by going to the URL at the top here. So Tome.app. Now, Tome is an AI tool for generating and creating kind of presentations. So historically, where we might have used kind of PowerPoint or something similar, we can get Tome to go and create us a deck, a slide deck based on information that we feed into it. So it will use a combination of tools in putting the content together. So obviously, in terms of the presentation piece, it's using Tome. It integrates with ChatGPT in terms of creating some of the content that sits behind there. But it also integrates with a different tool called DALL-E, which is an image generation tool. And in terms of the next tool, we're going to show you actually where Microsoft have kind of brought that live already. But in terms of Tome, say if you go to Tome.app, what we can do here is I can go and create a new presentation. Now there are some templates in there that you can kind of go and use as some basic ones, or we can just go and create one from scratch. So in this case, when I go to create, it gives me an options of things that I might want to do. And again, feel free to kind of go and create an account and have a play around with this. It gives you some credits in terms of doing some things. So, either turning a document into a presentation. We're going to create in this case, we're going to create a presentation about some information that we're going to feed into there. But there's lots of different articles or just things like creating images, etc. In terms of the purpose of today, we're going to create a presentation about, and a bit like ChatGPT, we're now going to feed it some information of what we want it to create a presentation about. So what I've kind of put together here is some text that I want to use. So I'm just going to feed it some basic information in here, and this is perhaps going to be about launching our company values. So at AAG, we have 5 core values that we buy to, which is kind of accountable, adaptable, growth, innovative, even, and togetherness. And I'm just going to give it some really basic information. This is kind of a snapshot of some detail. But with just a small amount of info, I can say, oh, I want it to go, and so I'm going to say, oh no, that's not the right one. Can't be doing something live. Just go back. Create a presentation about.
That's the you're a braver man than me to do live demos, you see, Charlie. That's the thing. I decided to to play it safe. So, but that's that's the truth. It's the reality. These tools do not always do everything. The internet doesn't always work. But it's really I've used it to create kind of, again, similar to the stuff I mentioned with Neuron Writer, like the frame. It's very good for the kind of baseline, and I think in a lot of jobs and tasks you do, it's sometimes I find it's that first step that's the hardest, and in the end the slides might not look nothing like what they created originally, but it gives me that starting point, and I think that's quite powerful when you're kind of having to create a presentation from scratch.
Type this in.
Yeah, you might have to just have to go manual.
Yeah, my whole old adage there of going to copy and paste doesn't seem to like it. So in this case, what do I want to do? So I want to create a presentation launching So I'm just perhaps going to keep it really simple off the back of that, rather than feeding any more info at this stage. So now, if I just press enter, what this will kind of go away and do. Did I do create a page or create a presentation? I've done create a page about. So, right, I knew this was a mistake. Should have been on create a presentation about. Apologies about this, everyone. Okay, let's just make it even easier. Let's go back to there. Create a presentation about the benefits of AI. Once I've selected the right options. So again, you can feed this kind of more detailed information in there, but actually I'm just going to go for some really basic information of, what are the benefits of AI. And you can see it's created me kind of 6 headline slides. And if I press continue, it will go and generate this slide deck automatically for me. So it's going to go and pull content from using things like ChatGPT, and it's starting to give me some, really useful information that gives me that starter for 10, as Neil was saying. So it's not necessarily the finished article, but it gives me a real nice foundation to start to build from. So it's going to create me a series of 8 slides, and again, kind of scrolling through that. Again, these headlines with the information that sits off the back of it, looks fairly useful as a starting point in terms of this particular subject matter. But I might then want to kind of go in and customize it. So in terms of kind of a information within the slide deck itself, again, this perhaps looks a little bit wordy to me, so I might want to just change that and summarize it. So with Tome, I can go and highlight that text, and I can do an AI edit against it, and I can perhaps I might want to adjust the tone of it, which I can either change the language styling within there, but actually I just might want to reduce it, and actually just make that a little bit easier to read. And I can start to kind of tweak and tailor these slides. I can still go manually type in and add my own individual content in there. But what it's also done is kind of generated me an image next to that slide deck as well. Now, I think out of the box, the images are a little bit out there, but we can go and kind of customize and tailor these as well. So, and we can, and again, this will kind of be shown in the next tool that we're going to show you, is that actually that image I don't particularly like. I'd rather change it to something else. So I can go into the image settings, and if I go to create, this was the prompt that the AI tool had used to create this image here in the first place, which I can completely go and change. Now, let's go for something really even not relevant to AI. I can ask this to create an image of something completely random, and you kind of your imagination is the only thing that's really restricting you here. So I could perhaps say, an image. I want an image of a goose fixing a computer. Let's go for something really random and stupid. So if I now click on generate, using the AI tool that sits within this presentation, hopefully within a few seconds, I'll get some image suggestions of a goose fixing a computer. And there we go. So again, your kind of imagination is the only thing that's here. And again, I can go and pick that image, and I can just kind of drop that into the slide deck. Really quite useful in terms of a start of 10. You can then kind of go and share this slide deck. Once you've done it and you're happy with it, you can add video content in here. You can add kind of GIF images. You can really kind of get really quite customized in terms of the look and feel of these slides and what they do. But just a really nice, quick, easy tool in terms of creating a presentation deck. The final tool that we're going to show you today, which is something that's gone live with Bing is Microsoft, as Neil mentioned kind of earlier on, one of the tools that we're really quite excited and waiting to come out is that Microsoft are launching an AI tool that's going to be built into Microsoft Office, which is something called Copilot. It was initially planned that it was going to be launched around now. It's now looking like it's going to be the end of next year into or moving into the beginning of 2024. But some of these tools and things like that that we're showing you today look like they are going to be inbuilt within the kind of Microsoft Copilot, and things like some of the functionality that's was like in Otter.ai is going to be part and kind of integrated in as part of like Microsoft Teams. So action points and creating minutes of meetings and agenda, and action points, etc., are all going to be kind of native within there. There is going to be an additional license fee for that, but that's certainly coming. One of the things that Microsoft have launched as part of Bing is this kind of image generation tool. So really similar to what we just showed you as part of Tome. But if you go to bing.com /create, and if you've not already got a Microsoft account, it's just going to ask you to create one. But this is a free tool that you can use to create images. And the only limitation is, again, you get a certain amount of credits that you can use. And the main thing is when it runs out, it's just going to take a little bit longer for it to generate an image for you. So if you're ever creating an article or putting a presentation together, or you want some imagery that you want to use on your website, you can use this tool to do it. And again, the only limitation that I found with this is really your imagination. And we can start to refine what that looks like. So as an example, if I want to create an image of a giraffe in a racing car, I can go and create this image. I've now got some images of a giraffe in a racing car, but I can now refine this even further and say, at the Monaco, at the Monaco Grand Prix.
You can get lost in this. It's it can get really fun as well. You can derail our entire meeting. If we had it a few times.
And then as an example, I might want to go even more stupid, wearing a pink hat.
You're really testing the AI's capabilities here. It's good. The other one you can do is like an oil painting, like that crocodile. You can add an artist style as well to really get into it. You can say like in a cyberpunk style or an oil painting, and it gets really good images.
Yeah, and I just, as Neil said, Neil, as you said, you can get completely lost in this, but you can start with the bare bones of an idea and then get creative with it and start building and adding to that image as you go along. So again, this is something obviously completely ridiculous, but I think it does demonstrate quite quickly how you can start feeding additional information, and the more detail that you can provide the AI tool, the more accurate result that you're actually going to get. So just thought this was a really nice useful tool to show you, something you can certainly go and have a play around with straight away. Like I said, it's on bing.com /create. You can have a little bit of fun with it, but from a serious standpoint, is sometimes where you just need some imagery to bring an idea to life. It might be a presentation, it might be certainly in terms of supporting a presentation or a proposal or some detailed information. There's some really nice it doesn't need to be a giraffe wearing a pink hat in a racing car at the Monaco Grand Prix, but a really useful tool potentially to use. So that's the final tool that we're going to show you today. Hopefully that's been of some interest off the back of it. Mark, I don't suppose you could just go back to the original slides there, just the original slide deck, if you're still there. Okay.
So see myself on the screen.
Sorry, I'm trying to get it back up. Yeah. There you go. Right.
Lovely.
So,
if you just go to the next slide, pal.
Where we're so yeah, the 3-part series.
So again, just thank everyone for coming today. Neil, thank you once again for your support.
Oh, thank you for having me. Great.
In terms of the webinar this morning. The next event that we're running is on Tuesday, the 15th of August. As we said, we've shown you some of the really nice aspects of using some AI tools. We're certainly going to be really highlighting some of the risks of using these tools and the information that you feed into it.
And also though AI tools and techniques that can make you more secure as well, because it's so pervasive, it's everywhere. So there's also and a little bit I want to do on everything's powered by AI now, right? So what does that, just it's become a buzzword. So what do you look for when looking at security offerings, security tools, when they say powered by AI? What are some simple questions to ask the the vendors, the providers, to make sure you get that it is actually adding some AI to it as well?
Okay, brilliant. Have we got any questions that have sat there? If not, feel free to shout out now.
Everybody's playing on images, Charles. They're all answered being images and
yeah, we've lost them all to chimpanzees in boiler suits and all sorts. Yeah.
Mark, I apologize. I completely plagiarised your giraffe idea this morning.
It's all right. Yeah, that just shows my own imagination, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, my ideas were far more boring than yours.
Than a giraffe in a race car at the Monaco Grand Prix.
You still need that creativity. I mean, the AI can only do what you can influence it to do. There's a whole field emerging called prompt engineering, which is
I got it on here.
Doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that there you go. I started with a rock band of llamas on stage with pigeons in the crowd, and it gave me that. And then that just grew into giraffe at the Monaco Grand Prix. But
right, brilliant. If there's no more questions, guys, thank you very much for coming today. We will kind of send a recording out with the slide deck, after the session. I say, if you do want to talk about kind of benefits of AI within your businesses, and you want to talk to us kind of on a more one-on-one basis, please feel free to reach out. Again, the contact details will be on that email as well. And we look forward to speaking to you all soon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.